This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have our friend Melvina Kleverova Zilliox joining us here today. She is amazing what she's doing at her cat ranch. A woman who really is true to my heart and dear to my heart because we're very similar. I love my cats too, and I'm so excited to talk to someone who has the same passion and love for animals like you. So welcome, darling. How you doing today, Melvina?
Thank you. I'm very well. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here. Just want
Thank
everybody to
you.
know where in the world are you specifically?
Yes, I am located in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh my goodness. And tell me a little bit about Melvina's Cat Ranch and what this is all about.
Yeah. So I actually had a little bit of a meandering pathway into my life with animals. I've always been a lifelong animal lover, but I did my professional career for the first 25 years in retail design work. So I got my undergrad in fashion design and then my master's in leadership and worked for some of the most amazing brands on the planet and had a really wonderful time and experiences there. But I had something that was calling me back to animals. So about 9 or 10 years ago, I went to school and became a veterinary assistant. And then I found out about this thing called feline behaviorism. And it was just kind of new to me that people were actually studying to become experts in feline behavior. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my calling. So I became a certified cat behavior trainer and consultant and did a ton of work with companion animals in private settings, shelters, worked with hundreds of animals at this point, and also
Wow.
really got some great opportunities to work with wild animals too. So some lemurs in Madagascar and some tigers in Texas. So that led me to my work currently on my PhD in
Massage.
anthrozoology,
I
which,
read
yeah,
that. Unbelievable. Oh my God. So that's
yeah.
combining the psychology, biology, and animal
Mhm.
science, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so honored to have you here. This is an amazing story and journey, and clearly you are well certified, well trained, and passionate about loving animals and specifically our friendly feline friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just curious, when did this calling with the animals start? Like, as a child,
Yeah.
did you have animals? When
Yeah.
because you love cats so much?
Yes, yeah. So growing up, we had dogs and cats. We were kind of a typical sort of 70s household that didn't really have the animals inside a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, they were kind of free roam. Dogs had dog houses. They came in bad weather, but for the most part, they were outside. And I always remember asking my mom, can I have the dogs, the cats sleep with me? She's like, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought in my adult life, I'm like, I'm going to have animals around me because it always made me feel a sense of joy and comfort. And so when I went into my adult life, I immediately surrounded myself with animals. And as you know, when you get multiple animals in a household, sometimes there are behavior issues or they don't get along or, life happens. And, just like us humans, animals all have different personalities. And I had zero training, like most of us, that, I don't know how to help them have a better environment or get along or all of these things. And so that was always kind of a seed in the back of my mind that I could be a better parent. So when I got the opportunity to go back to school and kind of start on this pathway, in animal education and really just understanding them better, it just felt like, the spark was lit and the fire started burning.
God bless. Amazing. Beautiful. And I have my cat behavioral problems I'm going to ask you about later so you can help
Absolutely.
me.
Yeah,
But I just
absolutely.
want people to know a little bit more about this description. So you're helping people. And by the way, is this only in person in the Milwaukee Avenue or this is all virtual at this point?
Yeah. So the good thing about COVID is it kind of opened
Yeah.
up our virtual receptibility to, not being in person. So prior to that, it was mostly in person,
Yeah.
mostly local. But with COVID, I started doing a lot more virtual consultations. And I do a lot in the Chicagoland area in person and obviously here in Milwaukee and Wisconsin. But I probably do 80% of my clients online from all over the country. So it really has opened up the possibilities for help. Personally, I like being in person because I think you can get, a better sense of,
Yeah.
animals' behavior and certainly the people too. That's why I was so drawn to anthrozoology versus just zoology, which is just animal science. But anthro, the person part, there's a person involved with every companion animal and even wild animals, keepers and things like that. So I was really focused on helping our people better understand and
Yeah.
help support our animals. Because if the person in the equation isn't able to fulfill that role, then, other issues arise. So that
Beautiful.
was, yeah, a big focus for me.
All right. And for those just tuning in, we're talking to Melvina, Melvina's Cat Ranch. Yeah. And she's here focusing on behavior training, modification using fear-free, low-stress methods, giving
Mhm.
guidance for nutrition, diet, community education. And you mentioned you use the least intrusive methods possible and proudly teach techniques to better interspecies communication, understanding. And clearly you take extreme pride in this and you
Yeah.
help so many, whether it's in your home, clinic, shelter. So, do you want to go over some of the areas of expertise for us?
Yeah, definitely. So for companion animals, my focus has been on kitties. So kitties have really had less of time to be with humans. Dogs we've had, around us as companion animals for about 10,000 years.
Okay.
Kitties only about 4,000.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we haven't really had as much time to really understand them. So some of the things that happen when kitties come into, this box that we humans live in is it's a not, an unnatural environment. So there can be litter box avoidance, there can be behavioral issues, aggression, there can be all sorts of things that we have kind of trapped them in these boxes and said, live with us, but we haven't really had a whole lot of time to understand them, not nearly as well as we have, our dog friends. So my work really kind of centers around all of that. And like you mentioned, behavior modification through positive reinforcement. I use all of the least invasive techniques that you can and try to give our kitties choice in the matter. So allowing them to have agency so they don't feel coerced into doing something that might not feel good for them at that moment or ever. And then that way it gives them a better emotional response to be able to choose something that they do. So there's a lot of new work that's happening in that realm where, even 10 or 20 years ago, behavior modification was really forceful. And
Yeah.
it was, the humans were in control of most things. And the human really kind of exerting control over the animals, which it can work, but it's not best for the learner. The
Got
learner
it.
will have a much better experience if they can choose to engage and do things that are positive versus negative. So I address all kinds of issues with that as a platform to be able to give our kitties and all animals a choice and a happy experience.
Beautiful. Well, let me just add to the conversation. I think this can benefit some of the listeners too. And let me just tell you a
Yeah,
little bit about me if you don't mind. So,
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
someone who grew up in a home and I had one cat, Precious Pumpkin. She had 78 kittens,
Oh,
18 litters,
oh,
and she was an outdoor cat. So,
wow.
but I took care of
Wow.
them all. I found them homes
Yeah,
and everyone's
yeah,
like, oh, that's horrible nowadays, right? But then I continued in my 20s to do the same thing and I had over
yeah.
120 cats. Never got once, but
Wow.
now,
Yeah,
now I have two kids, 10 and 8. Like, hear me out, ready? And I
yeah.
have an adopted cat from a shelter who's blind in one eye named Jackpot. Very
Oh,
skittish, whatever, but such a
yeah.
sweet girl. Then I have Princess, who Santa brought for my kids, who's just a mix of a
Oh,
Himalayan and Persian. Beautiful,
okay.
sweet. They got along well for about
Yeah.
8 months. Then my friend
Hmm.
had a blue Russian boy named Simba who the
Yeah.
cat, someone was allergic to it, the son. So I brought him home. So now Simba
Yeah.
and Princess had babies in December. Hear me
Okay.
out. Ready? They have
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
babies, which I just brought to the vet yesterday. So now we
Okay.
have Big Yeti Boy. We have, don't laugh, Big Yeti Boy, Snowflake, and Cuddles. Now hold on. Hear me out.
Yeah.
When Jackpot was introduced, the shelter cat, to Simba, the other cat, she was always hissing at him, and he did nothing. He was just like, whatever, whatever. Now he go out and had babies with my cat, and now if I put them in the same room, they are beating each other up. It is horrible. On top of it
Yeah.
all, now Simba has a problem. He's wearing a diaper. I just had him fixed last month,
Okay.
but he's still
Yeah.
spraying. Now, is he spraying
Yeah.
because it's a behavioral issue with the other cat in the house? Or is it
Right.
because, so I have to keep them separate? It's not easy. Oh, and then
Right.
they had kittens April 18th. So I have four more
Oh.
kittens in the house. So I'm a little hectic. I might need some private work here. But
Yeah,
my,
that's a lot to unpack, but yes, so kitties can actually go through different phases, even if they've gotten along, at one point, or I've even had, bonded pairs that have been together that, all of a sudden there's something that happens with their environment. Certainly there's a lot of change that just happened with your home. So having kittens, new arrival of cat, even getting fixed, like it's a really good thing that, marking or spraying will subside over time, but there's testosterone that's in him now that, will have to dissipate. So, the best thing that I can tell you just out of the gate, and this is for everybody, is to add pheromones to your home.
okay,
So there,
where do we
yeah,
get these? I'm writing this down.
yeah,
Tell
yeah.
me
So,
about that.
yeah. So pheromones are the chemical scent markers that
Yeah.
actually,
Attract each other
most,
to, even like
yeah,
humans, right? We're attracted to someone's
exactly.
pheromones in a sense. Okay, okay,
Exactly. Most mammals have them or had them at
okay.
one point. And pheromones can actually take a good stance or a bad stance. So there are stress pheromones and there are happy pheromones. And the pheromones that you can add into your home, I personally like Feel Away. It's the company that's been around the longest. They have research that is backed on how well these things work in homes for kitties. And it
Okay.
adds, there's a bunch of different ones that you can get. I personally like the one that has a combination of two pheromones, the facial pheromone and the mammary pheromone. So both of those work together to add kind of a calming sense to the environment. And it actually helps with multi-cat households to create kind of a more neutral communal scent. So cats are driven by their best sense, which is their sense of smell. And we humans don't have nearly as good of a sense of smell as they do. So when we put these chemicals, these pheromones into their environment, it's like a layer of calm that just comes across the house. And it can help with neutralizing that communal scent. So if, boy kitty is still urine marking, or if there's some stress pheromones out there, these positive pheromones can actually help to combat that and to make a better, happier, calmer environment for all the kitties.
Wow. And I don't even understand what these pheromones are specifically. Are they like
Mhm.
diffusers I put in the wall, or they put them on?
Yes.
Where do I put them? Where do you
Yeah.
get
So,
them from?
yeah. So I am, I don't work for Amazon, but I'm an Amazon girl. I get
Yeah.
most of my stuff from Amazon, but you can get them from Chewy or from pet supply stores. But they're diffusers that you plug in the wall, kind of like, your air fresheners or other
Yeah.
things. But they're little screw bottles that will, leach the pheromone into the atmosphere. So those I recommend having plugged in really in every room. They're good for about 700 square meters, so a good sized room for most people. They don't really work well beyond that, so they're, very site specific. So if you have, multiple rooms where the kitties hang out, I always suggest putting them in every room where they hang out. And you can actually also get a mister, like an atomizer, as
Interesting.
well, that you can use for spot treatment. So I love that for like visits to the vet or
Okay.
thunderstorms, or if the neighbors are tearing up their driveway, making a bunch of noise, making scary sounds, things like that, where there might be a stressful situation. You can add the atomizer, the little spritz, just as an extra spot treatment to add more good pheromones into the environment.
Beautiful. Thank you for the heads up with that. And I'm sure there's the
Yeah.
people out there dealing with other unwanted behaviors from their pets.
Yes.
What other things are we seeing around the home with kitties?
Yeah. So litter box avoidance is probably the thing that I work on the most, that and aggression. So between those two things, that's probably about 80% of my work. With litter box avoidance, there's always the number one thing with any animal that you're working with is rule out medical issues.
Okay.
So we can do all sorts of behavior work, but if there's an underlying medical issue, we can't really get around that with, all sorts of behavior work unless we're
Okay.
addressing the medical issue. So with kitties, sometimes they have urinary crystals or blockages, or there are lower urinary tract diseases or infections, things like that, that could just make them not want to go in the litter box. There could be some mobility issues. I've had clients that have had like litter robots, love them, hate them. They're usually up a little bit. They, clean the litter for you, but the
I
kitty,
have I have one,
yeah,
and there's one in a box downstairs that arrived yesterday because I need to now. I'm sorry, but I got the steps for one. The other one I didn't
yes,
yet, but I know exactly
yes.
what you're talking about, girl. Oh
Yes,
my goodness,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And some of our senior kitties or even kitties that aren't as, able-bodied, they might not
Yeah,
be able to jump in. So stairs, you did the exact right thing. If you're going to use a litter robot, I always recommend stairs. So there's many, many things to look at, but that number one thing is rule out any medical issues. So take your kitty to the vet, once a year, a wellness exam, if they need any additional diagnostics, things like that as they get older. Our kitties turn into seniors, believe it or not, when they turn like 7 or 8.
mm,
So, that for them is, getting into, their senior years. And so sometimes additional
yeah,
diagnostics or work is necessary, but that's always, what I tell folks to start with. And then we can go into looking at, different environmental factors,
of
different
course.
relationship factors, other things that are
Mm.
going to affect them behaviorally.
Amazing. Well, you are clearly an expert at this. I love that you're here guiding everyone in every possible way. I mean, there's also even separation anxiety that
Mhm.
people have to deal with, right? There's compassionate cooperative
Yeah.
care, play
Yep.
therapy,
Mhm.
nutrition. And I
Yes,
mean, nutrition's a big one because this is where
it
I get
is.
very upset and nervous because what
Mhm.
am I feeding my cats? Am I supposed to be
Yeah.
feeding the kibble or is it really that bad? Is it really the byproduct of
Yeah.
all bad stuff? Tell me
Yeah.
nutrition wise, what's going
Yeah.
on in our world of
Yeah.
advertising compared to reality, what we
Yes.
should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so nutrition is a big thing that I work on too. The number one thing is that if you can't really understand what the ingredients are, just like reading a box for us, if you don't really understand what's in there, then it's probably not as great. So you want limited ingredient, whole proteins. Cats are what we call obligate carnivores, so they actually don't need any carbohydrates. They need meat. And they actually get one of their amino acids called taurine only from meat. So they can't be vegan. I'm vegan. My cats can't
No.
be. So protein is really important. So look for high protein foods and
Mm-hmm.
limited ingredient, whole ingredient. Look for less of those carbs. They don't need them. They just
Okay.
become issues for them. So you don't need grains or fillers or corn, other things like that. They can have some carbs in the wild. If they were out there, the only carbs that they would eat would be in the stomachs of their prey. So they do get some,
Got
but
it.
it isn't
Mm-hmm.
necessary for them to, survive. But then, one of the things about nutrition for kitties is they're most naturally inclined to eat very small meals throughout the day. So even, your kibble or your wet foods, as long as they're good quality, give them more frequent meals throughout the
Okay.
day. It's more natural to how they would eat. So out there in the wild, they would be hunting, all day long. They would eat between 12 and 30 mice a day to survive. I know, it's crazy. So think about that in terms of very small meals that they would get throughout the day. And they make really good timed feeders. Like if you're out, at work or not at home, you can't give your cat 10 meals a day, but you can give them 4 meals on a timed feeder. So frequency, I've had a lot of aggression issues that have been completely fixed with just frequency of
Okay.
meals. So there's no food insecurity, there's no resource guarding, things like that can be really helpful from a nutritional standpoint.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And by the way, makes me mention another thing, and I'm not supposed to promote products, it's fine. But I have Pet Libero. I have the automatic feeder. I love that.
Yes,
And the
yes,
water thing with the
they're awesome.
camera. I
Yeah,
know,
they're
I know.
awesome.
All
Yeah,
right. I know you also want to talk a little bit about, perception is reality. Empathy is key to
yes,
understanding. Communication is happening all the
yes,
time. Let's get
yeah.
into a little bit of that.
Yeah, yeah. So as I was kind of getting, deeper into my studies with animals, I came across a book that really changed my life. And it was called An Immense World by Ed Young, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He's a science journalist, and he had won the Pulitzer Prize for his work on COVID. But he started to investigate how different animals perceive the world. And that to me blew my mind because we, humans, we're in this Anthropocene epoch because humans really rule everything. We've taken
Yeah.
over every aspect of the world.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
we tend to, as humans, kind of push the way we perceive the world onto everybody else. So, we look at our kitties and, we don't see the way that they see because, like I said, their best sense is their sense of smell. And we don't have that sense of perception. And so it really taught me to look from another animal's perspective and that empathy, that if you can really understand how they live and how they perceive, you will have a completely different view of how you interact with them and certainly how you teach them or how you guide them, with behavior modification. So that was truly fascinating to me, thinking about, our cats and their different senses, but even things like
Yeah.
rodents and hummingbirds can sense, ultrasonic vibrations, things like that, that we don't even have that kind of sensibility.
Yeah.
That, it just gives you that, different viewpoint of, someone else and how they perceive the world.
Well, I think it's fascinating. I'm ecstatic you're here helping so many people. And there's also a book that I know you want to mention that changed your life. What is this book?
Yeah, that is An Immense World. That is Ed Young's book, and he goes through everything from how spiders can sense the air currents that their little like buzzing prey are
Wow.
making, to how elephants can sense infrasonic, so sounds that are well below our hearing. They can
Wow.
sense vibrations in the ground, and that's how they sometimes can tell like where their clan members are, where danger is approaching from. So I highly recommend that book, for anyone that's interested in just animal behavior, that it will teach you so much. It's a little scientific, so you have to be kind of a nerd. I'm a nerd like that, so I loved it. You can kind of skip over the stuff that's, very, very scientific, but he gives you all of the studies and the research behind how they've been able to ascertain these things that animals can do. And it really changed my life in terms of thinking about, it isn't all about humans. Like when you take a step back and feel smaller in the world and realize that you're a part of something really big and beautiful, it really does change how you look at things.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for this. What else? I know it's our first show together. We still have 5 more minutes left. What else in particular did you
Yeah.
want to make sure we cover for today, being it is our first show? There's still so much to talk about.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know just from questions and other things that might be on people's minds,
Hmm.
from my work, aggression is one of the other things that is, a
Hmm.
big thing that I work with, and it can be there's several different types of aggression with animals. It could be human directed. So, I've got some kitties that are, they attack their humans, intercat aggression, mother to offspring. So it can be a bunch of different things. But one of the things that I have found is that usually aggression is somehow redirected. So it might not be that, it's the person making somebody mad or the cat making somebody mad. It could be other things from their environment. So really amping up the environmental enrichment
Yeah.
for all kitties is so important. So, that could come in many forms. And one of the easy ones and fun ones is play. And play therapy for kitties, it helps them exercise their natural desire to hunt.
Okay.
Because you think about all the things they do in play, they
Yeah.
stalk, they pounce, they eat, they play. It's hunting. And so for them, if you can add even one extra play session in a day, 5 minutes, that's all you have to do. Whip out a wand toy, get a little laser light out, throw them, a little ping pong ball. There's really wonderful self-play things too that you can get. So, motion activated, concealed motion toys, food puzzles, all sorts of things that
Yeah.
can amp up the environmental enrichment for kitties and give them other stuff to do. So, I would
Interesting.
say, Yeah, I always say, idle paws do the devil's work. So if you spend their energy in good ways and let them play for, extra time, then they will have less time to be anxious, fearful, aggressive, frustrated, all those bad behaviors. They'll be spending that energy doing good stuff.
Beautiful. I love it. Wow. Thank you so much. And just got to ask, how many animals do you have currently?
Oh gosh. Well, so my total kind of rotates because I do foster and rescue. So I kind
Oh.
of go up and down. So it kind of depends on who I've got at the moment. But it's a lot.
Well, I had three cats sleeping on my kids' heads last night, and each one, it's so
Yeah.
cute. They're those are the
Oh,
ones from December, and
yeah.
like they're all, one likes biting hair, one likes the
Yeah.
kneading, one likes the
Yeah.
cuddling and the purring. I
Yeah.
can't get enough. I'm
Yeah.
addicted to my babies,
Yeah.
and I just my heart breaks, and I just love people that love animals and for what you do.
Yes.
And I've never met a woman like yourself who does this, who's so into
Oh,
cats because people think
yeah.
I'm crazy. Like they call me crazy
You're
cat
not
lady. I'm
crazy.
like, I'm
No.
not. And
No.
we just love our animals. There's something so beautiful about their spirits.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that you love them and you love helping people help understand them and try to understand the animal. My goodness.
Yeah.
You also mentioned just quickly, feline massage. Is that really a
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. I do most of that for relaxation. There are
Okay.
certain strains that you can do for pain management. But with most of my consults being virtual, those are things that you really have to do in person. So I don't do as much of that, but relaxation therapy through massage for kitties is wonderful. And you can basically think of it as, knowing what areas of your kitty are make them most happy when you touch them. So some kitties, they love, kind of the chin or the cheeks or maybe behind the ears, find out where they love to be touched and then do that in a very
Yeah.
relaxing, calming way. So when they're, sitting next to you watching Netflix one night, you just give them, that extra chin stroking and it really helps them relax. So
Beautiful.
thinking about it in terms of what they like and then doing that in a very gentle way.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure getting to know you, my new friend. And
Yes.
thank you so much for being here, Melvina.
Thank you. It was
Melvina,
wonderful.
tell us how we can reach out to you. Would you have a website, phone number,
Yes.
any social media?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the best way to get me is through my website, which
Okay.
is melvinascatranch.com. And through there, you can see all of my credentials, all of my history. You can see some testimonials. And there's also a contact form. That's really the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of me. Just to fill out that contact form, you can tell me what your issues are, and I will get back to you usually within 12 to 24 hours. So start setting up some time to look at any and all issues that you might have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next time we get to connect.
Yay.
And thank you again, sweetheart. Enjoy the
Thank
rest of
you.
your day. Really
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you. The highlight
Yeah,
of my
you
day.
too.
Thank you.
Yay.
Bye bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.